Hi, and welcome to BI Publisher Template Designer using the wizard. We start off with our basic RTF template, load our XML data, and start building. In the BI Publisher tab, click on Table Wizard, Next, Next again, and now we are at the area where we select the fields that we want to display in our report, and we're just going to select the fields that we want to view, not necessarily the ones that we will use to do certain calculations. Click on Next. We want the data to be grouped on expression dummy name, which is the student's name. Check data already sorted because that's been done already on our data source or PS query. And then click on Finish. We see all the information here is created automatically in a table format, surrounded by a for each loop statement. Clicking on the properties of this tag, we see the for each loop is done based on the row grouped by the expression for dummy name, and here is the code that is generated automatically for us. Click OK. And then if we look at the closing tag, which is necessary when you have a beginning for each, previewing in PDF format. So this is how our data looks like, and it definitely needs some editing to make it more sensical. So these are the next steps that you see written and listed on the left-hand side. So we do need to move around some things. For instance, move the dummy ID in parentheses next to the name, followed by the expression for the FERPA activation or FERPA flag, highlight it in red. We can go ahead and delete some of the column headings for the data, the pieces of data that we moved up next to the name. The DESCR field is the student's plan or the description, so we want to copy or rather cut and move that underneath the student's name. And now let's rename the headings that we're keeping in the table for term, grade, and class number. Looking good. Clicking on Preview once again. So that looks a lot better. We still need to delete those outside columns. Before we do that though, just keep in mind that there are some for each tags that were created also at the table student level side. So you do need to move those. And just clicking on the for each, you can see the code that's been generated based on the grouping that was made above, grouping by the dummy name. Now we can go ahead and delete those beginning and ending columns, which we really do not need to see. And now we can continue by editing the header. Let's give it a more realistic name that makes a bit more sense. So I inserted a table here. In the first column, I'm going to insert the logo for the Duke University Registrar's Office. Resizing it a little bit, too big. And then on the second column, I'm going to type in the title of the report, which is going to be grade report for the plan pertaining to the students in question. And keep in mind that it's not possible to insert a field. You have to type it out inside the header. So type out the tag manually. And I'm just going to realign some things here. Make it a little bit more readable. I can also choose to not include a border on my heading. Previewing in PDF once more. Looking better, but I just want to adjust the title a little bit. And you can do this multiple times, as long as you're happy with it. I mean, you can leave it as is, but I want to see everything in a single row. So I made my adjustment there. Relatively easy to do if you are familiar with your basic MS Word functionalities. Looking much better now. I'm happy with that. And now it's time for some fun. So this is the part where we enter our calculations for each of the separate grade statuses that we have. Start by typing in that descriptive text right before each expression field that we are going to enter. And we are going to enter a function of sum for each of the fields that we're bringing in. Start with the expression for past courses. Click on grouping, select sum and insert. And you will need to do this for every individual grade status, always selecting the respective expression or field that has been created in our PS query, basically, which is our data source. One more to go. And a little tip here, just keep the dialog box open until you finish with all of your field entries. It'll save you some time. That looks good. I'm ready to render once more. And everything has been set. The totals seem to be matching up. So you can do the calculations in your head, looking at every individual student or just the first few. Make sure you have some variations there. So you want some with a number for withdrawal courses or failed classes. Don't forget to save. Also, a little tip, turn on the paragraph marks so you can display any hidden symbols and get rid of any unnecessary carriage returns so you can save space on your report. Clicking once more to preview. It's always good to do this multiple times with every change that you make to your report. But I see that there's something off here. Yes, the information for every student, or not every student, some of the students is actually breaking across pages. It is something that I need to deal with just to make the report a little bit more solid and the data showing up correctly. So what I do is I insert a table above the body and right below the group row statement. I cut and I paste that body of information inside this table. And then let me just preview to see what's happened. Okay, so I see that there is a table surrounding the information for every individual student that we're grouping on, but I'm not done yet. I need to right click and go to Table Properties and then go to the Row tab, uncheck the Allow Row to break across pages, click OK. Let me just double check that I did that correctly, and I did. Click OK again. And let's set the table to not display any border. And now preview. Much better. There is no breaking occurring, so I'm happy with that. And now we are going to deal with the grade statuses. I don't think it's necessary to display numbers that are 0, so I don't want any status showing up if it doesn't pertain to the student in question. So anybody, for example, who has all their classes passed, I don't want to show withdrawn, incomplete, or failed with 0s. So we enter something called the conditional region. These are tags that surround the text and the field calculation. And I basically want to say to the report engine, do not show this particular calculation if there is no number, or rather a number greater than 0. This is something that, again, I need to do per individual grade status and respective calculation. I would not recommend copying and pasting these conditional regions because there is somewhat of a bug. Even if you go behind the scenes and edit the condition, sometimes BA Publisher saves the previously copied code. So albeit it's a little bit manual, but it'll be worth your time when you do it. All right, so that's done. I do want to preview the PDF to see if it's working. So something's happening here. This student has 1 incomplete, but the totals that are showing up are only for past. That means I need to go check the code, see what's happening. So I double click on the first conditional region, and it seems like the code does need correction. It's only looking at the number being greater than 0, but remember the calculation on the field is a sum of all of the times that there is a class number tied to the expression for past, withdrawn, and complete. So I need to follow through with that logic in my conditional statement that wraps the number calculation as well. The way that we do this is I replace that number in the front with the sum of the current group for each individual conditional region. And by doing that, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking at the right calculation for all relevant values per the expressions for each individual student. Previewing, looking at my examples, I see that this has now been fixed. And we can move on. So now I'd like to just edit a few more things, right-click on the properties, BI Publisher properties, on each individual field, and change the format to 0 because I do want a whole number. Decimals, in this case, don't really make sense since every class is one class, a whole class. So instead of 1.00, I want to display 1 in my total. Now I can preview, and there it is. Very nice. Done. Thank you for viewing.